Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny. I'm along with Kenny Squared. This is Sports on the Positive Tip, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Kenny, do you know which baseball team had the best record in the majors in the month of July?
Was it the Mets?
It wasn't the Mets. So the Mets have the best record since June 1st, but just for the month of July. The Mets are
Hmm,
33 and 18, which is excellent since that time.
the Grimace era.
Yeah.
Maybe the Guardians?
The Guardians. That's a good guess because the Guardians are doing well. Actually, it's the Arizona Diamondbacks, who we had kind of
Oh,
written off earlier this year, and they were 17 and 8 in the month of July, and right back in the thick of it. Had a couple of walk-off wins this week. Um, I know that you definitely did something last night. I know that from beginning to end, you watched that Hall of Fame game with with the with the Bears and the Titans.
nah.
No.
I didn't watch a single second of it.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. So much more review on that. Um, I have a sad stat that I'm sure you probably weren't aware of. Did you know how many games Mike Trout has played after the All-Star break in the last 3 seasons?
I saw it. Isn't it like 40 or 45 or something like that?
One.
Oh
He's
gosh.
played one game after the All-Star break in the last 3 years. What a terrible, terrible, break for him. No pun intended, but tearing his meniscus. Definitely out. I think we're missing out on his prime, unfortunately. But lots to talk about with the trade deadline. Uh, we got a little fun thing we'll do with the all-time trade deadline deals. Where the Mets, Yankees, and as we now get into some serious baseball, we'll talk a little Olympics. Maybe there's anything happening in the NFL camps. You ready to get this going?
Let's go.
All right. This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers. Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. It is great to be back. Thank you all for listening and tuning in. Kenny, we're going to start here with the trading deadline. Obviously, a few days from it was a few days ago. A lot of moves, I think, on the deadline day. Seems like there was a lot of moves before the deadline day, but I think there were 30 something trades on the trading deadline day. Let's start with you, man. Who do you think made out the best? What were some of the key trades that you watched? And then we'll get a little bit more into Mets and Yankees after we go over some of the other teams.
Well, I want to start out with a fun one. Um, and me categorizing two AL East teams trading with each other as fun means that there's got to be some quirkiness with it. So, Danny Jansen, catcher for the Blue Jays, was traded to the Red Sox.
Right.
Um, and so, and to make room for him on the Red Sox roster, the Red Sox had to designate their catcher for a signing. That's all important because, as usual, with a lot of suspended games, you get weird stuff. And so the Red Sox and Blue Jays were playing a game that got suspended due to rain. The player at bat while the game got suspended was Danny Jansen. So he's going to be lifted for a pinch hitter because he's not on the team anymore. And so also the catcher in the game is no longer with the Red Sox. So more than likely, Danny Jansen is going to be placed in at catcher. So he'll essentially be the first player ever to play in the same game with two different teams. And through all of that too,
In the same game. That's crazy.
and he'll also be the first player to not only like hit in the same at bat, but also catch in the same at bat that he's in. So
That's
that's
just
fun.
crazy. That is fun, but that is crazy. See, that's not going to happen again. Now, wasn't there another player that just walked across, went from one clubhouse? It was that Paul DeYoung
Yeah.
that walked across. He got traded before the game and then just put on another uniform and they were playing each other. Was that the Royals and the White Sox?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Or no, maybe the Cardinals. No, he wasn't with the
No, he didn't
Cardinals.
go back to the Cardinals,
Um,
right?
yeah, no, yeah, he went to the Royals.
Yeah, that's an anomaly. All right, so who made out the best here?
I'm gonna start out with a little bit of a twist because I would say one of the teams that made out really well is the Miami Marlins.
Huh?
Um, talking about a team that knew they were going nowhere and they decided to basically purge the entire team. I saw a picture of last time they made the playoffs. What was that? Last year, the year before, when they made the wild card series.
They made it last year.
Um,
Yeah.
and like all of the players that were on it, and all of the exes of players that are no longer on that team. Um, and I think to an extent it's hard. Like if you're a fan of a bad team, and you know it's going to be a rough couple months.
Oh,
Looking at you, White Sox. Like a lot of those teams, you usually don't have something to look forward to. I think of the Mets last year too with that, where like
uh,
you knew things weren't
it was
going well,
awful. Yeah.
but then like you had that hope that like, okay, so we've gotten a lot of good prospects back, and hopefully we can kind of rebuild this. So hopefully this is like the start again of Marlins resurgence. So I think that's one.
Okay.
Two teams that I would hate to see that did really well, and I think they still did really well. The Dodgers, a lot. The Dodgers don't really have a lot of holes. I mean, that hence they're the second best team in the National League. But starting pitching, they can't keep guys
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah.
And getting Jack Flaherty will help. Although the Yankees had a deal in place for him and then backed out because of the medicals. He had 3 injections in his back in the last like couple of weeks. So
I'm glad you brought that up. I want to come right back to you, but I was listening to David Samson again, the Nothing Personal, and again, and he would know this stuff because it's so fun listening because it's a very inside thing. He reveals everything from his days as a GM. He said that getting injections in the back, if the fans knew how often pitchers got that, it would probably make them cringe. He said it's not unusual for pitchers at all. So he's not sure why Cashman backed off just because of back injection. He said because he guarantees that Cashman has some pitchers on his staff now that they're getting the same injections that Flattery is. So
interesting.
yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. But go ahead.
Also, I'm gonna point out another weird full circle with that trade. One of the players that the Dodgers gave up in that trade is a prospect, Trey Sweeney. I only know him because he was a longtime prospect with the Yankees.
Huh. Okay.
The Yankees traded him to the Dodgers this past offseason for, I don't remember if it was Victor Gonzalez or Caleb Ferguson, but one of those two guys and Yorbit Vivas. The primary reason why that trade happened wasn't for the Yankees, but more for the Dodgers. The Dodgers had 2 spots that they needed to clear on their 40-man to make room for Joe Kelly when he signed as a free agent and Shohei Ohtani. So the Yankees took both of those guys. They traded away Trey Sweeney. Since then, the Yankees have DFA'd both of those guys. They're no longer with the team. And Trey Sweeney is now obviously with the Tigers. So
yeah, that's interesting.
It does make you think, what if?
I don't know.
But
yeah.
I think besides the Flaherty thing, I think one of their bigger holes too is middle infield, and I think they've gotten some good help there.
Yeah, Ahmed Rosario, right? They picked up my former Met. I'm surprised he's bounced around a little bit now. Yeah. And who else did they get?
There was someone else. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So Dodgers, who else? I agree with you on the Dodgers.
I think also the Orioles too.
Yeah, that's mine as well. Yeah.
Because once again, they needed starting pitching. I feel like basically this, I'm going to brew on a hot take in a second about the trade deadline.
Yeah.
But like this trade deadline was basically very pitcher centric. But through that, none of the bigger arms got traded, which could be good, bad. I don't know how you want to say it.
Right.
but I think they did really well. Eloy Jimenez could be a very big X factor. I know he hasn't had a great season, but like the guy's gone from like the worst team in baseball, the worst team in like the last 5 years, to a team that's contending for a World Series.
I
So he
know.
might be a little fired up.
Can I just say this real quick? Eloy Jimenez, I know we're supposed to positive tip. He is probably the most overrated player in baseball. I mean, for the last 5 years, you've heard how this guy is going to do that. A couple of times, I think it was his turning point. I think he made a catch over the fence, and it was a gruesome injury where he broke his arm. And I think that was in spring training one year, 3 or 4 years ago. And he, to me, hasn't been the same since. And I think the White Sox paid him a lot of money. I'm sure the White Sox were giddy behind the scenes to kind of pawn him off on the Orioles. But anyway, but you're right. You never know. Change of scenery, and now you're in a pennant race. He certainly has the talent, but I just think he's been very, very overrated.
Yeah, and I don't know. You're right. It could be just like a um like hardcore. He's just very overrated and kind of
Yeah.
doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
But here's my thing with the trade deadline. Do we maybe overrate how much the trade deadline actually helps teams?
Huh. That's a good question. Go ahead.
Because I looked at the last few years here. So actually I did not look up 2018. I'm not including 2020 because I mean,
Yeah.
come on, it doesn't really
Was there really a deadline then? I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't know. There might not have been.
Yeah.
So okay, so this is 2018. Some of the notable trades. The Orioles trading Manny Machado to the Dodgers. Zach Britton going to the Yankees. The one that you might like at the time, people didn't really do anything with it, but I think it was end up being a gigantic trade. The Rays trading Nathan Eovaldi to the Red Sox, who then ends up helping them win the World Series.
Yes.
But like, I remember the big time there was the Rangers trading Cole Hamels to the Cubs, and that was also like there was also the cool thing where was it Cole Hamels that like no, that was Jake Arrieta that pitched a no-hitter before getting traded.
Yeah. Jake Arrieta. Yeah.
I mean, and also in retrospect, the Yankees getting Luke Voit, that was that trade deadline.
Yeah.
Like the big one was the one that people aren't really necessarily looking at. Nathan Eovaldi. 2019. Zach Greinke was probably the biggest one that moved. He went to the Astros, which that turned out to be pretty big because they had such a deep rotation that helped them get to the World
I remember
Series.
that. Yeah.
But of course they didn't win it because the Nationals saved everyone.
Right.
Master.
Saved everyone.
And 2021, that's the one I really want to hone in on because in 2021, the Dodgers made a gigantic trade acquiring both Max Scherzer and Trey Turner from the Nationals.
Yes.
And if you remember, the Padres were this close to getting him, and then it didn't happen. And they did not do much with it. I mean, I guess they did get to the NLCS, but that's about it.
Yeah.
The Yankees that year acquired Joey Gallo, the left-handed power bat that everyone's been clamoring for. And that didn't help them at all.
No.
But once again, the low-key trade that worked was the Braves, who got guys like Eddie Rosario. I believe Austin Riley, was that right? Was there?
No, Adam Duvall.
Adam Duvall, that's what
and Soler. And surprise, surprise, they got the same three guys back this year. Duvall at the beginning of the year, but Rosario and Soler in the last couple of weeks.
So, like, it's to me a lot of times, and okay, last year is probably an exception because the biggest trade was probably Max Scherzer to the Rangers, as well as Jordan Montgomery to the Rangers. Both of them obviously really helped them win a title.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes people think the biggest trade deadline acquisitions are the ones that put you over the top. It might be the low-key ones that people aren't necessarily talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that one could be Jazz Chisholm with the Yankees.
Well,
it seems like he's kind of transformed that team already.
So let's go there. I love your point. let's go there. Talk about the Yankees and what they did, and obviously right there to getting Flaherty, um, which I didn't think they needed starting pitching, but when I look back, he would have certainly helped them. Um, but they do land Chisholm. What were your overall thoughts on what the Yankees have done here? And obviously they're playing better, and Chisholm has started off phenomenal.
Yeah, now I was looking at a lot of like Yankees Twitter and a lot of people very upset that they didn't do more. And but it also doesn't seem like, because you had asked the question before, is Jack Flaherty really that much of an upgrade over Nestor Cortez? And I don't know if he is.
Yeah,
He might be slightly better, but like um but I think the Yankees, one of their biggest things is they really needed to shore up the bullpen, and they acquired Mark Leiter Jr. and Yel De Los Santos.
yeah, yeah.
So I think that'll kind of help their
Oh,
back end of the
definitely.
bullpen. Scott Efros coming back too soon. Like I think he's going to be doing some rehab in the next couple weeks, as well as Lou Trevino. Like the bullpen, I feel a little bit more confident in. And the Yankees needed another infielder. DJ LeMahieu and Gleyber Torres at third and second was not cutting it.
Yeah,
So I think having Jazz Chisholm in there, he's become the ultimate team guy by saying, I'll just play wherever, and then has never played third base in his professional career,
isn't that
and then
amazing?
goes and looks amazing there.
Yeah,
So
it's amazing.
and I think like besides the stats and the positioning and the defense and the speed, like he has kind of created like the ultimate vibes guy type of
Yeah,
move, where I feel like a lot of the guys were starting to get a little bit too uptight, including Juan Soto. And I think that he's kind of helped get them a little looser now. Verdugo as well. Like
yeah.
he was so like chill and relaxed, but I feel like now we're back to a place where we can start moving.
Yeah, and it's paid off. I mean, they've been playing well. They were playing well before, but I mean, they swept Philadelphia, the best team in baseball. I think that sends a big message in October, because those could be the two World Series teams. Um, I thought the Yankees did extremely well. Flaherty. I'll just go back to him for 1 second. I like Cortez a lot. I like Flaherty. Something is off. I know he had an injury, but something is a little off. And my tip off with him, Ken, was I was really surprised he only got a 1 year deal with the Tigers when he became a free agent. I mean, if you look back 2, 3 years ago, you would have never thought that. You would have thought that he would have gotten a big time contract. So maybe there is something health wise with him a little bit more than injections in the back that even caused the Tigers to only give him a 1 year deal. And for the Tigers, it works out, right? Because they got some prospects, I'm sure, back for them. And we never know how they're going to work out. Although we're going to answer the question, some of the best deals of all time. And you're going to see sprinkled over a few of the ones that I have. There's some prospects that worked out well. Most of them you never heard of, again. But I think that the Yankees did extremely well. I would feel better. Not feeling great until who they play this weekend?
Toronto? Yeah,
Yeah.
Toronto.
I'm not feeling great until they get a couple of more series under their belt. Not necessarily sweeps, but 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3. And now, you're back on a roll, and now you got your sights back on the division.
Well, first, Isaac will be happy to. He's not going to probably listen to this, but I am rooting hard for the Guardians because they're playing the Orioles this weekend.
That's a good series.
But over the next 33 games, which puts us like right after Labor Day, essentially,
Yeah.
the Yankees have 27 games against teams with losing records.
Yeah.
And the two series, one is against the Guardians, and then the other is against the Cardinals, who are only a couple games over 500.
Yeah.
So like, in terms of strength of schedule in the month of August, the Yankees are 28th, like the 28th hardest schedule. So I think that this is a good opportunity for them to really like start to stack up some wins, put some distance between them and not just the Orioles, but some of the other teams in the American League. So you can grab some distance with Boston, Minnesota, Kansas City. So then, like, should you end up in a wild card scenario, you're definitely going to get the top spot.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and they do play like a lot of they play the White Sox this month, the
Well,
Nationals, the Rock maybe the Rockies, but yeah,
yeah.
they have an easy August.
Okay. All right. So you're feeling good about the Yankees. This is I like this. I thought the Mets did well. I think the same thing on Twitter. Everybody was looking for the Mets to make a huge splash, go get Blake Snell, and I wasn't expecting that. I love what they did with their bullpen. Not just the guy from the Marlins, but before the deadline day, you got Maton, who's been really good, and Stanek, who wasn't as good in his first outing, was better in his second. But those are two guys that have a lot of postseason experience. So I'll take those guys in a pressure situation. They have guys coming back with Reed Garrett and Danielle Nunez, who've been both of those guys have been good. Though Garrett's been a little bit he's been a little bit inconsistent, but he's been overall good. I didn't know anything about Paul Blackburn, but he's a solid end of the rotation guy for a number 5 pitcher. They needed that. I would like to have seen him get, a top pitcher, but it just wasn't happening. I don't think they knocked on the Tigers' door. Um, I think that it was pretty clear that Crochet wasn't going anywhere from the White Sox after he said, you're gonna have to pay me. And I don't even think teams called him. He was never my favorite player, but I love that they got Jesse Winker. That was because he used to always taunt the Mets, and there was a game where he gave the Met fans the finger, and he used to always go back and forth with the Met fans. But the guy can hit. I know he's had a couple of off seasons. Was having a really good year this year, and so I think he's definitely an upgrade. I like DJ Stewart, but Stewart just wasn't getting it done this year like he did last year. So Winker is definitely an upgrade from that. We just have no idea when Starling Marte is coming back. So I like the Met team. Leo, let's go. I think that they took 2 out of 3 from the Twins. That was good. This is the longest road trip now. They're going all over the place. I think they go from Anaheim to St. Louis to Colorado to Seattle. So and this is going to be a good test, for them. So I'm feeling good about the Mets in the wild card. I don't think they'll catch the Phillies, although they're only like, I think the other day they got to 7 out, but now they're 8 out, I think, or 7.5, something like that. I don't think they'll catch the Phillies. I think the Phillies will right the ship. I know they've had a tough month or so, especially the last few weeks, but I think they'll be fine. But they can catch that number 1 wild card spot. I'll put them against the Braves right now, mostly because of the Braves injuries. You know, so yeah, one team I'll say that I thought also made out really good was the Padres. I just don't know what to make of them. But getting Tanner Scott, I mean, this guy actually, Tanner Scott's been good for a couple of years, but I mean, he really came into his own this year. And the Padres landing him, but you were right. The Marlins got a haul. Josh Bell. I mean, you had to know they weren't going to keep Josh Bell. They got him last year. And Josh Bell's a good player. But some of these guys like, Tommy Pham, you knew he wasn't staying on the White Sox. Boy, guy gets traded. I think this is the 3rd or 4th straight deadline that he's gotten traded. They're just some guy, Jock Peterson's another, although he didn't get traded this year. But there's just certain guys that are going to get traded at the deadline.
Josh Bell,
Yeah, well, who's that?
Josh Bell,
Josh Bell is
yeah.
definitely one that every year since he got traded from the Pirates. Every year he's getting traded at the deadline. Because wasn't he with the Guardians? Yeah.
Yeah, he was there. I think he got traded.
He got traded to the Marlins
there or
at the deadline last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you know of Immaculate Grid? Have I ever sent you that?
no.
I'll have to send it to you. But like it's a 3x3 grid, and it has teams on like the top and on the side. And you have to like match. So it's like a Yankees, Mets, and then you have to figure out a player that like played for both teams. Or like sometimes they'll have like awards or a guy that's only played for one team. So
yeah.
Josh Bell would be a good Immaculate Grid answer in a lot of.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. He's playing a lot of teams now. Tommy Pham as well. I don't know why Tommy Pham keeps getting traded. He's so good. He's always good hit. You saw that in his first game back with the Cardinals. He hits the opposite field grand slam against the Cubs. I mean, he could always. I don't know why. I saw why the Mets traded him last year, and I suppose it certainly made sense for the White Sox, to trade him this year. But these other years, I'm not really sure. All right, you wanted to get nostalgic real quick. Go ahead. You had something else?
Oh, I just pulled up the one for today. Like, for example,
Yeah,
name me a Met and a Giant.
a Met and a Giant, Michael Conforto or
Oh,
Wilmer
that's a good one.
Flores, JD Davis, who's probably going to sit out the rest of the year, is my guess.
Yeah, the Yankees announced today that they've officially released him from the roster. So
Yeah, I don't
he
know who's going to
wasn't he
pick him
wasn't
up.
gonna go to the minors.
Somebody might pick him up.
A Met that's won 200 or more career wins. They don't all have to be with the Mets.
A Met that's won 200 or more. Well, Justin Verlander
That's a good one.
or Max Scherzer. Ain't too many Mets that have won 200 game. Tom Glavine, but he's not around anymore.
A Met that's played second base.
A Met, an ex Met or current Met?
Any in history.
Any in history? Wow.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just go Jimenez with the Guardians.
Oh, that's a good one. And like, yeah, only 0.5% said that one. So like, and it's a grid. So the next one would be Angels and also the A's.
Well, that's
I'll send it to you.
okay. All right, we'll have some fun with that.
Yeah.
All right. Nostalgia, best deadline deals ever. I'll start. I think I have five, but the first two I'm gonna say. I want to do the first two real quick, and then you can knock your one or two of yours out because they both have to do with your great success in 2009. 2008, the Angels landed Mark Teixeira from the Braves. You know what Mark Teixeira did the second half that year? In only 54 games with the Angels, he batted 358 and had 13 home runs. And then as much as he tried, they couldn't. And this goes back to your earlier point that they'll maybe make a difference, but does it get them all to the World Series? Because the Angels got blistering hot when they got him. He carried them. They needed another bat behind Vladimir Guerrero, and he stayed hot in the division series. I don't have it in front of me, but he hit something like 500 in the division series. But they still lost to the Red Sox that year. That was the year Big Papi, I think, hit 2 walk-off home runs in the division series against the Angels. But Mark Teixeira, reason why I bring that up, I'll tie that in with also in 2008, but a little earlier that month, the Milwaukee Brewers land one CC Sabathia from the Cleveland at the time Indians. Now there were 4 players that they shipped, 4 at the Brewers shipped to Cleveland for CC. One of them happened to turn out to be one Michael Brantley. So the other 3 never made it to the majors, but you had one really good player that actually turned out to be in that trade. Now, CC, he just went off and he pitched 133 some odd innings for the Brewers. I mean, they pretty much gave him the ball. Towards the last week, they were in a race with the Cubs. They gave him the ball like almost every 2 days. He pitched 7 complete games down the stretch and 3 shutouts. He carried them to the playoffs. Now, the Brewers, what's significant about that's 2008. The Brewers had not been in the postseason since 1982. Now, and that's hard to believe because we kind of are used to seeing the Brewers almost every year in the playoffs now, and they'll be back in it this year again. But they lost to the Phillies in the division series, but CC beat the Phillies in the game that he pitched. So that was big because the Yankees cleared the roster space and the money. These were 2 guys that they watched from afar and said, we got to go out and get them. And so they signed both Teixeira and Sabathia in that offseason. And 2009, the rest is history. Both of them were huge parts of that. Both great Yankees for a long time. And so those 2 trade deadline deals, the one for CC was on July 7th. So it wasn't exactly at the deadline. The Brewers were smart. They went out and got him a little earlier. So those are my first 2. Great deadline deals. They didn't get to the World Series, but neither one of those teams would have gotten to the playoffs without Teixeira or without Sabathia.
Fun fact with Sabathia, because I had him on my list too. In 2008, he led both leagues in shutouts separately.
Really? I did
Um,
not know that.
he tied for the league in the American League for 2 shutouts, and then had 3 shutouts with the Brewers, which led to NL.
He
So
had an
he led the
amazing
NL
game.
and the AL in shutouts that year.
Yeah. He had
Um,
7 complete games in 2008 and with the Brewers. Amazing.
yeah. All right. So I'm gonna start out with one. This is 2012,
Yeah.
and I think it's one of those trades that help set up both teams really well. Um, when the Dodgers completed what they called the largest trade in franchise history at the time, acquiring Adrian Gonzalez, Carl Crawford, and Josh Beckett in a 9-player trade with the Red Sox. Um, the guys that they gave up, none of them really like amounted to anything. James Loney was probably the biggest name that the Red Sox got,
Yeah.
but it was big for both teams because the Dodgers they were just acquired by the group with Magic Johnson, so they had a lot more money and were trying to build up that payroll. And that's kind of when the Dodgers' long run of being really good and not winning a championship started.
Yeah.
But then also for the Red Sox, they looked to try to reset. And then the next year, they had a good core, and then they made it all the way to the World Series. The two teams almost actually faced each other in 2013 World Series,
Wow.
but obviously it was the Cardinals. No,
Wow.
yeah, it was the Cardinals.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So I like that trade because it
That's a
was,
good
and
one.
also I believe that was a waiver trade, which doesn't exist anymore, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it happened after the fact. Yeah, August 25th. So it happened after July.
August.
So
Wow. Wow. I think got Beckett. Adrian Gonzalez was still good too, man. He was excellent, excellent first baseman. All right, that's a good one. All right, I'm gonna take you back to 1998. The Houston Astros pull up a major trade. The Seattle Mariners, they have the best pitcher in baseball. They know they're not going to be able to re-sign him, Mr. Randy Johnson. And so at the deadline, they trade him to the Houston Astros, which started one of their runs before this run right here. Really got them going as they went on to win the division, but they did lose in the NLDS, I believe, to the Braves that year. But this was one of those trades where 3 guys that were minor leaguers at the time all turned out to be pretty good major leaguers. Freddie Garcia went from the Astros to Seattle, Carlos Guillen, and John Halama. So those are 3 names that weren't great players, but Freddie Garcia was very good, all-star, I'm sure, several times. But
Yankee legend.
listen to what the big unit did in 11 starts. He went 10-1 with a 1.28 ERA, and he had 116 strikeouts in 11 starts. I mean, he was lights out. And if I remember right, maybe that was a year before. I was gonna say that he pitched in they had to do a 1-game playoff, but I think I'm thinking of the Mariners the year before. They had to do a 1-game playoff with the Angels. And he was lights out in that as well. But I think that's the year before. But I mean, Randy John, it was just an amazing, amazing trade. But that was an expensive rental because they gave up 3 pretty good players. And certainly, he wound up signing with the Diamondbacks, I believe. So Randy Johnson, 1998 is my next one. What you got?
Well, speaking of trading for a bunch of actually pretty good guys, this would be 2002. The Indians traded Nets legend Bartolo Colon to the Expos.
Oh,
And of course, this is like one of the more like, man, this guy got fleeced. The 3 guys they get back, Cliff Lee, Brandon Phillips, and Grady Sizemore.
that's
I mean,
amazing. That was amazing. Yeah, that's right. Now, do you know who the GM was with the Expos at that time?
current Yankees executive Omar Minaya, right?
Yes. Yeah. Sad with Omar Minaya. I know he lost his wife recently. But Omar Minaya had a really good explanation for that trade because he knew Cliff Lee was going to be good, he said. He didn't know Grady Sizemore would be as good. Grady Sizemore was a really good player, great hitter. And I'm not sure why Brandon Phillips or how he wound up with the Reds, but obviously Brandon Phillips was a very good player for a long time. He said that he was told that the Expos they were done, that would be their last year in existence ever. So he got the okay because Major League Baseball was running the Expos at the time. So he got the okay to go ahead and pull the trigger on that trade because, the Expos still had Cliff Lee. They still had, not Cliff Lee, Cliff Floyd. They still had a good core. Moises Alou was still on the team. They had a good core on that team. So the commissioner's office, this is his, what he said, told them, go ahead, man, go for it. These prospects, they're going to go to other teams anyway. So go ahead and trade them. But as it turned out, the Expos were around for a few more years after that, until they finally became the Nationals. But they got controlled by Major League Baseball. That's Omar Minaya, is that, he always got used to get killed about that trade, that was one of the worst trades ever. And it was. I mean, Bartolo still pitched well for a lot of teams after that, but my goodness, those three guys. I mean, Cliff Lee, if he hadn't gotten hurt, he could have walked into the Hall of Fame. He had some amazing years, All right, I got you two. I'm going to do these two real quick. 2008, Manny Ramirez goes to the Dodgers. Big 3-team trade with the Pirates and Red Sox. And I think the only name that panned out, and he was already a good player, the only name that really panned out was Jason Bay, but he only panned out for that 1 year with the Red Sox. And then he had a half year with the Red Sox, and he had a great year the following year, and then the Mets signed him, and then we know what happened. But here's what Manny did. In 53 games, Manny batted .396 with the Dodgers. He almost batted .400 for the Dodgers, and he had 13 home runs. But they lost to the Phillies in the championship series, and that was the Joe Torre team. I thought they were destined for the World Series, but they couldn't get by the Phillies those 2 years. It was back-to-back years, right? The Phillies went to the World Series. They beat the Dodgers. And then,
Yeah.
of course, one of the best ever was 2015 when the Mets got Yoenis Cespedes. Had to put that in.
That's a good one.
I mean, Cespedes. Now, listen, they did trade Michael Fulmer, who I looked this up. He didn't pitch. He hasn't pitched this year. I didn't realize he's out with an injury. The Red Sox signed him to a multi-year contract, knowing that he wouldn't pitch this year. So hopefully he'll come back. I mean, Fulmer, a little bit of a flash in the pan because he was Rookie of the Year in 2016 with the Tigers, and then he was an All-Star in 2017. But he hasn't been very good since. Listen to what Cespedes does. So he finishes the year with 35 homers, 105 RBIs, and he bats .291. With the Mets down the stretch, man, in just the 2 months, 17 homers, 10 doubles, 3 triples. He had a 1.048 OPS. I mean, the guy he was killing it every night. And he was making diving catches in the outfield. I mean, Cespedes, they paid a lot for him, and they only got that half year. And then 2016 were the only really good years they got out of him. And the poor guy gets hurt. And then who knows what happened to COVID year when he just walked away. And we haven't seen him since. But those two trades I thought were great. You got one more or two more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other guy is Luis Cessa, who was with the Yankees for a hot second. They traded him to Cincinnati.
He was.
I was actually just looking up. Yeah, he was
Oh,
the other guy.
okay.
So last one, I had the Braves on there. We talked about the Braves. 2021, Jock Peterson, Eddie Rosario, still there. The other one I want to mention, because there was actually some talk about it when the Yankees played the Mets. Because remember when the Yankees put up Jahmai Jones and JD Davis in the top 4 of the lineup.
Yeah.
There was someone had written a book about Joe Torre. It might have been an autobiography, I don't remember, but Joe Torre put a notoriously bad lineup in a prominent game back in 2002 with the hopes that Steinbrenner would kind of get off of his butt and help him get a big guy. And sure enough, a few days later, they got their big guy. The Yankees acquire Raul Mondesi from the Toronto Blue Jays.
Oh, wow.
Which he did pretty well. He played in 71 games that year. And then another 98 in 2003 before getting traded to the Diamondbacks. He hit .250 with 27 home runs, 92 RBIs. Also went 3 for 12 in the division series that year. So
Joe Torre admitted to putting a bad lineup out there. So, and I have a Raul Mondesi interesting tidbit story for you if you want to hear it.
Yeah, go
He
for
was
it.
a good hitter, Raul Mondesi. Didn't play. I don't know if he got hurt or I want to say he petered out relatively quick. But did you know this? Raul Mondesi. This is bad. He's been in jail for the last several years in the Dominican Republic. So after his
Oh,
playing career was over, he became a mayor in a small village in Dominican Republic somewhere. And I want to say it's not that small, actually, of a big city. But he got accused of really bad like embezzlement and like stole city funds and so not only did he go to trial, he got arrested, he got convicted, and he was in jail for almost 4 years. He just recently got released. That's a very interesting tidbit. Now I could have sworn that Raul Mondesi Jr. is in the major leagues or is close to being in the major
oh,
leagues.
I think
Um,
he just got traded actually. Hold
Really?
on.
Yeah. But I thought that's an interesting tidbit. Mondesi was with the Dodgers. I'm sure he was rookie of the year. Had a couple of big years. I don't remember him doing that much with the Yankees. And I remember the trade, but I don't remember him doing that much.
Oh, let's see. Raul Mondesi Jr.
Yeah,
I
I could have
just
sworn that I saw while you're doing that, I think the Mets getting Jesse Winker means probably Jackie Bradley Jr. won't be coming up anytime soon because he's left-handed, left-handed hitting outfielder. But the Mets still have him, so we'll see. Maybe it'll be a September call up.
yeah, you might see oh, there's no way he's that
Yeah.
old. Because I'm seeing like 2011,
Uh yeah, maybe I'm
but
wrong.
I
I could
mean,
have sworn he had a son that was close to the majors or
yeah,
yeah.
I thought I had seen,
Yeah.
if not him, I definitely saw like a former player's son get
Yeah.
traded, aside from like
Yeah.
Mark Leiter.
Yeah. 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 Anyway, that's all I got on a trade deadline. I mean, it was a good trade deadline. Um, it was fun. I actually was happened to be home and was watching the MLB network's coverage and I actually stayed with it because nothing else was on. I was going back and forth to the Olympics. We'll get to that in a second. Um, but their coverage was so good, MLB network, it used to be ESPN or you'd listen on MLB radio, but being able to be home and watch it kind of unfold, it was really good. Very interesting. All right, it's August, man. So it's time for the contenders, pretenders to just kind of get out of the way. So did you want to talk some Olympics? Did you have anything?
Not necessarily. Um, I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk about Jason Tatum. And like, I don't know, he's had kind of a weird year. Um, he's on the best team, wins the championship, and then gets benched in the Olympics, like a
Yeah,
DNP. Um, but like, I mean, there hasn't been like that huge moment. I mean, if you want to say Simone Biles
yeah.
winning the gold again.
Oh, Katie
Uh
Ledecky, I think that's been a big moment. Uh,
yeah,
let's go back to the basketball for a little bit because for the first time that I ever remember, Grant Hill has taken a little bit of heat here for the whole Jalen Brown thing. Have you followed that at all?
not really.
So I'll be brief. Jalen Brown, they chose. Listen, no knock on Derek White, very very good player. He ain't Jalen Brown. I mean, Jalen Brown, you can make a case he's one of the top 10, 15 players in the league. Certainly the second best player at least, right? On the best team in the NBA. He should have been on the team. I forgot who it was that got hurt. It was of course it was Kawhi Leonard. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to say that about Kawhi, but he's always hurt.
Oh yeah.
But Derek White replaced Kawhi Leonard, and Jalen Brown came right out and said, now Jalen Brown, and you and I wouldn't know this because we don't follow all that stuff. This is a lot of social media stuff, but Jalen Brown's had this long running feud with Nike, and Nike is the sponsor of the team uniforms and the sneakers and everything like that. And it's mostly um, Nike guys on the contract, such as Derek White, that are on the team. And this just got very, very obvious that it was Nike making the decision, and it's supposed to be Grant Hill's decision as to who would replace Kawhi Leonard. And so when Jalen Brown came right out and said, um, obviously it's my relationship or lack of one with Nike is why I'm on the team. And he was very respectful. He just doesn't want to, diss his teammate. He said, Derek White, excellent player, but there's only one reason why I'm not on the team. And then Grant Hill came out and said just the opposite, that after careful consideration, blah, blah, blah. And so he's taken a lot of heat for that because one of the executives at Nike said, Jalen Brown, he's probably right. So someone from Nike, probably went to Grant Hill and said, no way you should put him on the team. The only comparison, and this is a bigger comparison, the only comparison you can make is there's been a lot made of over the years of Isaiah Thomas not being on the 92 Dream Team because of that it was Michael Jordan that kept him off of it. That he went, and I mean Chuck Daly is Isaiah's coach, so he goes to Chuck Daly and says, I don't want him on the team. He'll cause problems and everything like that. And Isaiah was the second best point guard at that time, right? Right behind Magic. Just an unbelievable player. In fact, Magic had already retired and kind of came out of retirement for to play in the Olympics. This hasn't been quite that type of controversy, but it kind of has been. But it's the first time I hear people questioning Grant Hill. He had an amazing career, Grant Hill. He's been an amazing broadcaster. I didn't even know he had this position with the U.S. Olympic Committee, where he actually chooses the coach. Obviously, Steve Kerr was chosen this year, and it's him that really chooses the players. So I thought that was pretty interesting. That's the South Sudan. There's gonna be a movie about them. That has to be. Did you know that they don't have one indoor court in the whole country?
Yeah, that's wild.
Royal Ivy is their coach, and you might know that name because he played in the NBA, a good player, bounced around several teams through the thousands. He's in his very early 40s, so he didn't play in the NBA like in the 80s. He's kind of in your lifetime, and he was born there, but he grew up here in New York. I think actually from the Bronx or Brooklyn, one of the two, but he put that team together, and I mean, they got smoked the other night, but they gave the U.S. a tough time. But either way, you're probably going to see a movie about that team because there's so many little inspirational stories. Maybe I'll look some up and we can share them next week,
Yeah.
But the Olympics is, I mean, Katie Ledecky, I mean, she's amazing. I think, Kenny, for me, and I think you the same, because you talked pretty strong about this last year or 2 years ago. We talked a lot about mental health and Simone Biles. And why am I blanking on the tennis player who just a few months after that in the US
Oh,
Open bowed out, had the same kind of issues that Simone Biles was having. She's very good. She's come back. Not Coco Gauff. It'll come to one of us, or maybe you'll look it up. But it's so important to get help for your mental health. I mean, and people, I don't mean to make it a race thing, but especially in the African American community, we think that it's a badge of dishonor to get help for our mental health. And Simone Biles, she's in a great relationship with is it Jonathan Ogden? Not Ogden, right? I know his first name is Jonathan. Her husband plays for the Bears, right? And they gave her permission to have the time away. And she's just amazing. And I don't know if you are watching her, she takes this deep breath and then she whispers to herself, you got this. I mean, you can see her word, mouthing that. And she's just been amazing. I think, she goes down as the GOAT. Be interesting to see what she does after, does she go into broadcasting or something, afterwards. But she's just been amazing, and Ledecky's been amazing. But for me, there hasn't been a big story that's had me, I gotta watch this yet. Maybe this coming week as basketball gets a little deeper, maybe there'll be some boxing that I'll get interested in. But but there hasn't been a compelling enough. I mean, I think Ledecky and Biles are compelling. The US team for me is not that compelling yet. I think as they start to get a little deeper into this over this next week or so, that'll get a little more compelling for me. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. It seems like it's been a very like there's been some moments, and I think we've kind of highlighted them, but
Yeah.
there hasn't been I feel like the only thing that's become a bigger story is like some of the controversy stuff, like the
Yeah.
Last Supper thing and
Tough.
the
Yeah.
and all of that. So
Yeah.
I don't I would agree. Um I think the US winning gold for basketball might add some extra juice, especially if they dominate like people think that they're going
I
to
think so.
continue to
Yeah.
do so.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess we'll kind of continue to see.
Yeah. And LeBron James at his age, if he continues to play at this level, I think it's such an amazing story. I got nothing from the NFL camps. I know we had that on our list. Um, Now I think they're in Cleveland though. Did you guys have one of the running backs had to get helicoptered to the hospital? What was that all about?
Yeah, he had a very serious neck injury. Um, he was hospitalized, but they did announce that he was released today. So,
Oh, good. Oh, praise
um,
God. Good. Okay.
yeah,
Well, thank goodness he's okay. All right. Well, we'll have a lot more to talk about next week on that. I'll look for some I'm sure there's some inspirational Olympic stories. Your mom told me this one, and I'll just say it on the periphery because I don't know the great details of it. But you've seen some of the guys like Snoop Dogg and Flavor Flav popping up. Like Snoop Dogg was, not a
his
fan, but
torchbearer.
yeah, and but apparently, there was a country. I'll have to look it up. That I think it was a women's rugby team, and they had to pay their own way there. They had to pay for their uniforms. They all had full-time jobs. And when he found out about this, I'm talking about not Snoop Dogg, but Flavor Flav. When he found out about this, he footed the total bill for them. It's not a U.S. team. It's a team from a small country. I got to look that up. But because I was wondering, and it's a couple of times I was turning, why is Flavor Flav there? It's like, but he sponsored this whole team, brought their uniforms, paid for their flights there. Obviously, they don't have to pay a hotel. They're in the Olympic Village, but I thought that was pretty cool. Snoop Dogg, I'm not 100% sure why we're seeing him so much, but whatever, whatever. All right, you ready for inspiration?
Yeah,
All right. I've got two, but one is very quick. The other day, Steph Curry posted Romans 10, 9. Romans 10 at verse 9, which reads, if you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe with your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. He didn't type all that in, but that's what Romans 10, 9 is. And then all he put after that was, I'm more than a basketball player. I thought that was pretty cool, and so Curry, it's going to be interesting to see what he does. There'll be a lot of broadcast openings, in the next year. And Gordon Hayward, I saw just retired. I think he's probably going to be one of those guys that will wind up on a post game or pregame show somewhere for one of these teams. But Curry, I think, would be really good as well because he's got an interesting personality. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I thought that was pretty cool. But here's my main one. The Mets brought up a pitcher named Eric Ozrie. I think I pronounced it right. Orze. And he's a very interesting guy. And I had to look it up because I think it was Ron Darling when he got his first out. So when he first came in, he came into a game. I don't remember who it was against. It probably was against the Pirates, maybe. Um, and he didn't record an out. I think Mendoza took him out after 3 batters. But he looked good, I think he walked a couple of guys and then there was one hit. And then the next time he came in, Ron Darling, who's a cancer survivor, said when he got his first out, he looked very relieved because I think he gave up a base hit and then he got a double play or something like that. And he pitched well. He finished the inning. He's back in the minor leagues now because of all these moves the Mets made, but he'll probably be back up because he looks like he has a little something. But Ron Darling said that's a big deal, but not nearly as big a deal to him in his life. And then Gary Cohen said, yes, if you're not familiar with his story, go look it up. So that's what I did. So I didn't know this. I'll just read it real quick. It's very short. After visiting after the visiting clubhouse in Worcester, Mass, had mostly emptied Friday night. This is from a couple of weeks ago. Eric Osray took a moment to consider his journey and was overcome with emotion. The Mets reliever had received the news, with teammates present, from AAA Syracuse manager Dick Scott that he had been added to the major league roster. Osry, 26, and this was when Christian Scott went on the DL that he got added. Osry, who's 26 now, was diagnosed with testicular cancer 6 years ago, and he underwent not one, but 2 surgeries for it. But he was later found to also have skin cancer, and he required even further treatment. And so he said it's been a crazy journey at PNC Park before the Mets beat the Pirates. A lot of ups and downs. Friday's news meant a lot. At first, I was just kind of smiling and kind of happy, and the clubhouse cleared out a little. I was packing some of my stuff, and I got a little emotional for a second. And all those tough times come back for a minute, and all of it was worth it. All of it made me the person I am today and the player I am, so I wouldn't change a thing. Carlos Mendoza says this. What a great story. It's a credit to him and player development and all he's been through in his life. He's a big leaguer now. It's pretty special. I mean, listen, he's already, won life, right? He's already won the battle of life. So I think everything that happens to him, and I do think he'll be a major league pitcher, if not with the Mets, with someone else. He looks like he has really good stuff. But I don't think that'll be the most important thing to him. Overcoming cancer twice at such a young age and getting it kind of back to back. And, if you read more into it, he had a lot of difficulty recovering from the 2 surgeries for testicular cancer. Then he's thinking he's good. And then he's got to have chemo again because he's got skin cancer. He's been through a lot, so wish him all the best. He'll probably be back with the Mets, I would guess, in September. But anyway, Eric Osry, that's my inspiration, and Steph Curry, inspiration for today.
Yeah, hopefully we can see him shortly, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna go back to some trade deadline stuff, and my inspiration actually goes back to Jazz Chisholm. Because it's always important to have someone that you can look up to, that can mentor you and take you on that journey. When Jazz Chisholm was traded to the Marlins, he was hand selected by the owner at the time, who you might know as Derek Jeter.
Yes.
So Jeter kind of took him under his wing and said, like, hey, like, I want you here, like, we're building a culture and all that. And obviously then the Marlins decided to like not care about actually building a winning team, so Jeter left. But so Chisholm and Jeter started to build a really strong relationship. But Jazz Chisholm was always very fond of one Kobe Bryant, and like looked up to him and kind of modeled his game. I know different sports and all after him. And he was supposed to meet him sometime in January 2020. And then like some things kind of came up and he wasn't able to do so. And then they rescheduled for the day that he died. So the day that Kobe was killed in the plane crash.
Wow.
Jazz Chisholm was supposed to be meeting with him. So
I did not know
obviously, like, he sees the news and like is devastated.
Yeah.
So then he calls up Derek Jeter and is like, and kind of tells him like, hey, I was supposed to meet Kobe today. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, that guy was like my mentor and everything. So I want you to be my mentor. So Jeter said, all right. And he said from that moment on, Jeter was kind of like a father to him and has been mentoring him ever since. And they say, it's not like confirmed, but MLB The Show 23, Jazz Chisholm's on the cover.
Really?
And they say a lot of that influence is because Derek Jeter is on the Legends cover. And like basically told like the creators, like, you should put Jazz Chisholm on the cover.
Yeah.
When Derek Jeter tells you stuff, he probably
you're gonna do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now that Jazz Chisholm is with the Yankees, and also that's why I think he wore number 2 with Miami, was because of Derek Jeter. So now that he is with the Yankees, Derek Jeter also, like, I don't think he has an actual position, but like, he's kind of there.
Yeah.
I'm sure that relationship will continue to build. And yeah, it's got to be tough when you lose your mentor, like, to a tragic plane
And just
crash.
when he was going to meet him.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Um, but it'll be cool. And he's been great here so far. So hopefully he'll continue to do well.
Yeah. That's a great story, Ken. Chisholm, I've always liked him. He plays with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and I like that. And I thought the Marlins was building something. I was really surprised when very early this year, right? It had to be within the first month they traded Luis Arraez, right? And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, something is up. And then there's a talk about that the owner, because I think they have a new owner coming in, and a new GM, and they said they're sure because Schumacher only signed a 2-year contract, and they were like, hey, they're sure he's not going to be back next year. And he seems like a really good manager. But I thought they were building a nice core with Chisholm, Chris De La Cruz. Then they picked up a couple of veterans last year with Berger and Josh Bell. I was like, and they've always had good pitching, but then this season went sideways so fast when Alcantara, is goes down. He's not going to pitch for the year. They gave up on the year quick. I was like, but I think they'll rebuild again because they got a lot of players. Supposedly a lot of them are very good prospects. So, we'll see. But that's an amazing story. Let me ask you this last question and we'll wrap up. How much have you watched Jeter on the pregame show or postgame show with A-Rod and Big Poppy and our guy Kevin Burkhardt?
Not that much. I'll see like clips every once in a while. But I don't really watch it that regularly.
Yeah. I think you might have mentioned that actually last week because we were talking about inside the NBA. You said the other shows you just watched some of the clips that they have. I thought A-Rod was going to be one of the best broadcasters that we would have when he was with Matt Vesturgeon, right? And Jessica Mendoza, that three. A-Rod was so insightful. And I remember almost so from the beginning, a lot of people said the same thing, and then it kind of soured quick because they said he just talked way too much. Well, John Schmaltz does too, I mean, but so I guess what I'm saying is that he's not that great on the post game. I don't get much insight from him. Big Poppy is there because he's Big Poppy. He's funny, he's gregarious. But if you're looking for like X's and O's and some baseball insight, you're not gonna get that from him either. Jeter, on the other hand, now again, I haven't watched it that much. It's just usually around 6:30 on Saturday night. I've kind of done everything, and I'll settle. What is the game of the week, or and I'll turn to Channel 5, and watch. So I've seen probably a lot more than you have, especially the last couple of weeks. Jeter, on the other hand, is very measured. I think he tolerates kind of the hijinks that goes on with the two of them, but you can tell he wants to really talk, baseball. So what I'm saying is that, and I'm surprised you know this, because Jeter never gave us nothing. When Jeter was like, when he start the Athletic, or when I'm like, he's going into media, and then when they put him on, I was like, he never told us anything. But I have to tell you, in this role, potentially he's very good. I would love to see them put him. He probably not want to do it, but I'd love to see them put him in the booth, and just let him start to break down a game. And because you'll know this, he won't talk as much as any of these guys that are on the national games talk now. Even Eduardo Perez now talks more than he used to talk. I don't know why, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, because they were talking that there was a chance that Jeter would do some yes games. I think they should still make that happen. Joe Girardi is great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I've really liked him. But I would love to see Derek Jeter there. Girardi also with the Phillies series, since he was just the manager there.
Yes.
There's a lot of great insight. Like they were talking a lot about how he put Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot and kind of the reasoning why. So
Yeah.
he's good,
They
but
took
I would
off
love to
right
see
after.
Jeter too.
They took off right after he left. And listen, he's such a loyal guy. I mean, Rob Thompson is the same Rob Thompson that was on the Yankees with the Yankees for a long time with Girardi and with Torrey. He was there. And he gets the opportunity there. He brings him to the Phillies with him, and he finally got an opportunity to be a manager, and he's doing great. No, Girardi is great. I'll just last thing I promise. Yankees have way too many broadcasters. How many broadcasters do you guys have?
We also have Jeff Nelson. Jeff Nelson can be kind of annoying sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Flaherty,
then obviously David Cohn, Paul
yeah.
O'Neill. Who'd you say?
John Flattery.
Yeah. He doesn't do as many games. He does more pre-post now.
Does more the pre-post.
Who there's
else
someone else I'm missing.
Yeah.
So yeah, Coney and Flattery, they're probably gonna be doing the game. Or not Coney and Flattery, Coney and Paul O'Neill. They're probably gonna be doing the game tonight.
But O'Neill is very good. I like him.
Oh yeah,
because he's just a straight shooter. And I always thought David Cohn was very good as a broadcaster. I like that he's on the national games, as well. He's very good. But there's not that consistency. The Mets, they just have the three guys. I think Cohen is not on this road trip, so Steve Gelbs fills in play-by-play. And I think there's a time where neither Hernandez or Darling can make it, so Todd Zeal. But Todd Zeal's done that now for a few years. He's done probably about 10 games a year. But for the most part, it's those three guys,
Well, doesn't count as much. Ryan Rucco, he does he'll do the play-by-play when Mike McKay isn't there.
Yeah. And they haven't named a permanent radio person yet, right?
No, I don't know. For a while, I really like Justin Shackle. I think he calls a good game. But then I was listening a little bit to the Ricky Ricardo call on Jazz Chisholm, and that sounds the most like John Sterling to me. So he had a good one. Have you listened to it?
Ricky Ricardo. I always thought that was kind of funny,
Yeah.
Now is Roberto Clemente Jr. still do the Spanish broadcast for the Yankees?
I think he might. Ricky Ricardo also does the Spanish when he's not. When he's not calling the
I think Clemente Jr. was a analyst, not a play-by-play guy, but I know he did it at one time. He was doing the Yankee Spanish. It's very interesting. Craig Carton, I think, was doing some games with Susan Waldman. I thought I read that either if he already did or was going to do.
Yeah, I'm not listening to that.
It's very interesting because he made fun of her for years. So I'm sure she's not a fan, but sometimes she had a little thin skin as well, but she went through a lot, in her broadcasting career, but McCartney laid it on a lot. Anyway, we rambled a little bit, but this was good. Yeah. So we'll be back next week with a bunch of stuff. Kenny, take us home.
All right. This is Kenny Squared Ed.
Kenny.
With Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next week.